All right, hey everybody, this is Rosh, and you're watching Helix Basics. This is a YouTube tutorial series I'm putting together to help new and experienced users program their Line 6 Helix. So a little about myself. Once again, my name is Rosh. I build and program guitar rigs out here in the LA area as well as online. Some of my clients include Steve Vai, Leppard, Maroon 5, A Perfect Circle, Melissa Etheridge, Kylie Minogue, Bush, and more. So I wanted to give back to the Helix community and show some tips and tricks on how to program their Line 6 Helix Floor. So if you've been watching this YouTube channel, you've seen that I've definitely put up a lot of fractal audio content. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know about me is that I program all the modelers out there on the market, including the Quad Cortex, the Kemper, all the fractal products, and in this case, the Line 6 Helix Floor. So there's a lot of crossover content, a lot of best practices that are going to work on any modeler, regardless of brand. And these are going to be the tips and tricks that are going to get you the best tone and functionality out of all your modelers, whether it's live in the studio, on tour, or any other situation you find yourself in. So with this video is going to be dealing with dual cabinets. Now, if you've been watching the previous videos, we've definitely been only using one cabinet and, one microphone for everything. But in my opinion, to get the best type of guitar tone, the dual cabinets are definitely going to be the quickest way forward. So what we're going to do is just do a basic overview of how to use them, and let's dial in some tones with them. So let's go back to our user set list, and let's start with an empty preset. So you can click this drop down menu, user set list 1 through 5 right here, allow you to have all your personal presets. And I already have a preset here in 01A, so I'm going to put this in 01B. We're presented with a blank preset here. And in previous videos, I was using the amp and cab block to basically use Line 6's pairing of the cabinet with the amplifier. Now what we're going to do is we're going to shift the paradigm a little bit, and we're going to use an amp and a cabinet, and we're going to do this separately. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add an amp block. And in this case, let's dial in a clean sound first. I'm going to use the US Deluxe Normal. This is a deluxe reverb, basically. And now, if you use just the amplifier here without a cabinet block, you're basically hearing what the amp sounds like without any cabinet. It's going to sound really bad. So the thing that you always want to do is when you use the amplifier block, you also want to pair it with a cabinet. So I've already added the amplifier here. I'm going to go to this next slot here and add the cabinet. And then now you're presented with any of these cabinets here. Now, Line 6 defaults to using a single cabinet in this drop-down menu, but what you want to do is, of course, use the dual cabinets. And we're going to explain what's going on in the dual cabinets in just a moment. So we're going to use the dual cabinet, and in this case, I'm going to use this 1x12 US Deluxe. This is the Deluxe Reverb cabinet that is also paired with the Deluxe Reverb amp. So in the Deluxe and the dual cabinet, for the what this allows you to do is actually use 2 different cabinets together, as well as any different mic combination that you would want to use, etc. So what I'll do first is, of course, I will go into this one, and this is the first cabinet, and then this is going to be the second cabinet. And you can see that up here, this allows you to maybe use different cabinets if you'd like, as opposed to using 2 different microphones on the same cabinet. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to use the same cabinet, but we're going to use 2 different microphones. And this is a very common practice in the studio as well as live. Most of the guitar tones that you're going to hear all over the place are generally going to be using 2 different microphones. They're usually going to pair them. Combinations of a dynamic microphone and a ribbon microphone is a very common pairing you'll see with a lot of guitar recordings. So here we already have the US Deluxe. And in this case, the default was the 2x12 jazz rivet. What we're going to do is, of course, select the US Deluxe here as well. And you can see that now we have 2 of the same cabinet. But what we want to do, of course, is we want to possibly change the mic position between both of these. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to isolate each microphone by itself. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to this second cabinet, and I'm going to actually take the level all the way down so that we can just focus on this first microphone placement and this first cabinet. So let's first try to get a clean tone. We definitely don't want this much drive. I'm going to go down maybe to about 3 here. And we're going to go back to this cabinet, and we're going to start with the 57. And what we're going to do is we're going to pair a dynamic mic with a ribbon mic. And so I'm going to actually not do this, angle of the mic. I'm going to do it straight on, and I'm going to start where I recommend most people do is start at the cap edge. And we're going to scroll down here. We're going to start at the cap edge here, and then we're going to go down to the low and high cut, and we're going to do some pretty standard low and high cut. So we're going to low cut at 80, and then we're going to high cut at about 8,000. And again, if you've watched previous videos, I won't go too much in depth this time around with the low and high cuts. This is just going to prevent any information below this frequency, and it's also going to cut off any information above this frequency. And this helps your tones sit in the mix better. Most things above 8,000 hertz is going to be, really spiky, high-end frequencies that you generally don't need for guitar anyway. So again, I generally recommend a low cut between 80 and 100 hertz and a high cut between 5,000 to 8,000. You can go a little higher if you need a little bit more sparkle, but I find that even between 8,000 and 10,000 hertz or kilohertz or whatever you want to call it, you're not going to really hear much of a difference. Yeah, sounds pretty much the same to me. And we're going to also just bring the channel volume of this up a little bit. And of course, let's bring the drive up a little bit. Perfect. All right, so now what we're hearing is just the 57. We're not hearing this other microphone yet. So what we want to do is get that kind of happening. And again, I'm playing a Les Paul. Here's the neck pickup. And I'm going for, a clean sound. That's something that can be really useful. I can maybe boost this with an overdrive pedal if I need to. I can play a lot of clean rhythm guitar on this. And when I switch to the bridge pickup, if I dig in a little bit, there's a little bit of a breakup. But nothing too crazy. Let's see if we can possibly raise the drive up just a hair. And I'm going to lower the bass a little bit, crank the treble up a little bit more. And then now we got this clean sound with a 57. And again, the dynamic microphones are generally going to be used for adding a lot more mid-range. It doesn't have a lot of low end and a lot of top end, but definitely helps that, cutting mid-range of most of the things. Now, the reason why we would use a dual cabinet is now that we can pair this with another microphone that's going to fill in the gaps that maybe the first microphone doesn't. So a very common pairing is using the Royer 121 paired with a 57. And again, this is kind of like your bread and butter, peanut butter and jelly kind of mic combination that is very ubiquitous. It's used a lot, and I think this is a very good starting point for most people. And again, we're going to put the position right at the cap edge, and we're going to do the same standard low and high cuts here. Now, keep in mind that the ribbon mics generally have a lot more low end than the dynamic mics. So we're going to start here. You may need to even move this high cut up a little bit more. And then now we're going to blend the level back in. The 57, in my opinion, is going to do most of the heavy lifting of the tone. And then what we're going to use the ribbon mic to do is just blending in a little bit of that smoothness on the top end and a little bit more low end. So I'm going to start somewhere around halfway, and I'm going to start blending that microphone in. So right away around this area between -8 and -4, you can start hearing that low end come in. So again, here's all the way down, as opposed to here. Just add some thickness and warmth to the low end of this guitar tone. And so now we're going to kind of blend this in. And again, it kind of gets rid of that little spikiness at the top. And now the tone sounds a lot fuller as opposed to this. So let's bring this kind of right around here, maybe around -6. And of course, let's bring this channel volume down a little bit. And again, you can hear that we get kind of a, full tone. And if you do want to start moving the microphone around between these two, you can definitely start doing that. So in my, where I hear the 57, I could probably just move a little bit further out. And again, the closer you get to the center, the brighter the tone is. The further you move away from the center, the darker the tone is. So I'm going to move the 57 just a hair out. And you can hear right away that, this is kind of like a much fuller tone than if we were just going to use the 57 by itself. And if you obviously need more thickness and warmth, you can blend this a little bit more in. So if we do 0, then it's just going to basically be the same volume for both microphones. So one thing you can also do, of course, is if you take this 57 all the way down, you can hear what kind of tone the ribbon mic is providing. So you can hear there's a lot of low end coming from that microphone. So let's move this back to the 0 dB right here. And let's go back to the ribbon mic. And you can hear that this mic is just providing a lot of that warmth in that tone, and kind of like smoothing out the top end. And again, I'm using the bridge pickup of a Les Paul, so if this bridge pickup tone is a little too bright and brash, again, this is just mainly coming from the guitar. And of course, if we want this tone to be darker, we can just start dragging that mic out a little bit. So for me, I like to have the 57 do most of the heavy lifting. Again, I want a lot of mid-range in my tone so that it cuts through the mix without being too dark. So right there, we already have like a nice, great clean tone. At this point, I'm going to add a reverb, and let's use, dynamic hall, and we'll bring the decay down a little bit, and we'll bring the mix down a little bit just to give it a little bit of space in the guitar tone. All right, so at this point, it's pretty usable clean tone. Again, if you need it to be cleaner, by obviously just bring the drive down. And of course, use the channel volume to compensate. But for me, I found that 4.0 range was just fine for me. Maybe just a hair down. Again, I'm thinking something like pretty usable clean tone on the neck pickup or the middle pickup. And again, by using the dual cabinets. Now, at this point, let's dial in maybe a crunch tone using the dual cabinets again. So this time, what we're going to do is we're going to take this amp and we're going to change it. Let's change it to one of the AC style amps right here. These are excellent amps for crunch style tones. I'm going to use the match stick. And then this is basically the matchless DC30. And in this case, instead of using the 1x12 Deluxe, we're going to also switch to one of these. So these are two different speaker types. In this case, we're going to use the G25s. And let's experiment with those and see what kind of tone we can get with those. So I'll bring the second cabinet all the way down so we can focus on the first cabinet. And let's just see what we're kind of working with. Yeah, I definitely like the G25 much better. And again, we're going to start, even though the default, move the microphone there, let's start with somewhere around the cap edge. And again, we're going to do the same type of thing where we're going to blend a dynamic and a ribbon mic together. I will change this to the 121 ribbon. And again, we're keeping the level way down here. And you can see that the low and high cut has also defaulted to some other value here. We're going to move the distance all the way up against the grill cloth. I want as much of the proximity effect as I can get. And I'm going to bring the high cut to about 80. And I'm going to bring this down to about 8,000. So let's see what we're working with here. So at this point, I also don't need that much drive. So let's do this. So for me, you know, this seems to be working. We can also experiment with channel 2. Yeah, I think channel 2 is actually going to work a little bit better for the tone I'm going for. So we're going to bring the tone up a little bit. And again, the cut is kind of a reverse present, so I'm going to bring that down. So actually, we're going to go back to channel 1. So let's bring the treble up, let's bring the bass down, and the drive down a little bit. A little bit less cut, a little bit more treble, and maybe a little bit more bass. All right, so that's a good starting point for a crunch tone. And again, I'm going to do most of the tonal shaping in microphone placement and microphone movement. So seems to be a little bit more gain than I would like. Let's maybe move it down to here. And for me, what I'm listening for is something that's going to have a little bit of grit on my bridge pickup, but I can still roll the volume off and get a semi-clean tone. And, you know, we're going to use the neck pickup and get the same type of results. Great. Let's bring the channel volume up just to compensate for that. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And again, we're only listening to the 57 here. Now what we can do is, of course, start blending in this ribbon mic. Let's move the ribbon mic again back to the cap edge. I always like to start here. And again, you can always move it further in or further out as much as you need it. We'll do the same low and high cuts here. So 80, and let's do 8,000. And what we're going to do is I'm going to slowly blend in the level until I get enough low end and smoothness and warmth from the ribbon mic that's going to balance out from the 57 there. So and for me, what I'm hearing is that it's still pretty bright, so I'm going to move this ribbon mic a little further out. And this amp is a pretty mid-range heavy amp, so what we can also do is start moving the 57 a little further out as well. Let's divide the difference on that. So I like a little bit of that edge to kind of cut through, but not too spiky. Yeah, somewhere around there sounds really great. And again, you'll notice that most of the tonal shaping that I'm doing is actually in the cabinet block. Most of the amp settings really, to me, kind of determine the feel of the amp. For amps like this and some of the Marshalls, you know, cranking the bass up, it doesn't really provide that much low end. It makes the low end a lot of woofy and squishy. You know, it just makes it kind of get in the way. And for me, I'd rather get more of the low end in the bass just by moving the microphone around a little bit. So again, let's go back to the ribbon mic and let's add a little bit more of this. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And again, if you want to hear what the ribbon mic is doing in this tone, we'll just bring the level down on the 57. So you can hear that it's just providing that dark low end and a little bit of smoothness at the top. So we'll bring this back to 0, and we could probably blend this almost to 0 dB. Let's hear what that sounds like. That might be a little too much. Let's do somewhere around here. So you can hear a lot of the tonal shaping is just moving these things around. And again, this is just a very common pairing. There are other ribbon mics and other dynamic mics, of course, but I find that these two pair really well together to get, you know, a guitar tone that's going to be very useful. And again, it's a very full range kind of guitar tone. You get a lot of the low end and that smooth top end from the, you know, the ribbon mic, but You get a lot of the mid-range that's going to help you punch through the mix from the dynamic mic. And again, I think using the dual cabinets is going to give you a lot more tonal options than, of course, using just the amp and cabinet block. And this is definitely what a lot of recorded guitar tones, a lot of our favorite guitar tones are going to be done in this manner. Obviously, there are many exceptions to that where there's a lot of guitar tones using only one mic, but I find that you get a lot of tonal shaping possibilities using these two mics. And you'll notice I'm not spending too much time in the actual amp block because, again, to me, a lot of these, knobs can be limiting. So in the case of this, matchless, it only really has a bass and a treble knob. There's nothing really for the mid-range. So how do we adjust the mid-range if we don't actually have access to a knob? What we can, of course, do is the mid-range is coming from this microphone, and we can start experimenting with where the microphone's going to be to add more or less mid-range of this guitar tone. So if you need a lot more, that's probably too much. Again, here's at the cap edge, right around here. It's probably a little bright. So again, we just move this out. It's a little too dark for me. So again, we're trying to find that, kind of happy, sweet spot right in the middle of that. And again, for me, I prefer tones that, err on the side of being a little too mid-rangey, a little too bright and brash, because again, I'm thinking in the context of playing live, this is going to be a type of guitar tone that's going to definitely help you cut through the mix. If you make your guitar tone too dark and you only use like ribbon mics, for example, and it sounds really great to you at home, you may find that your tone gets lost live in the mix. So this is a good place to wrap it up for this video. We definitely dialed in a clean sound as well as a crunch sound using the dual cabinets. In the future video, we'll definitely start working on some, rock rhythm stuff as well as some high gain stuff using the dual cabinets as well. So again, I think this is going to get you a lot of mileage out of your Helix using the dual cabinets. And again, this is, in my opinion, where most of the magic happens in any modeler. It's definitely in the cabinet block. So without further ado, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. If you need any one-on-one help, feel free to contact me directly and I can help you program your Helix or any other modeler you have, and we'll go from there. Thanks.
I'm falling with you. I'm standing with you.